Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the ever-explosive world of Sister Wives, the latest drama unfolding around Kody Brown has taken an even darker and more personal turn, one that has fans buzzing louder than ever before, because Kody's relentless attacks against Meri Brown's alleged new husband are not only escalating but also dragging other key players into the battlefield, including Meri's outspoken best friend Jen, who has become something of a folk hero among viewers after going toe-to-toe with Kody and Robyn in ways no one else dares to. And while the Brown family has always thrived on messy confrontations, what we're seeing now is a full-blown clash of identities, reputations, and long-festering resentments that threaten to rewrite the entire narrative of who holds the moral high ground, with Kody seemingly unable to cope with the reality that Meri has moved forward in her life, found happiness with someone else, and no longer clings to his approval, which leaves him flailing and furious, and instead of quietly retreating into his increasingly isolated marriage with Robyn, Kody is allegedly lashing out with bitter comments about Meri's new husband, questioning his character, mocking his finances, and even attempting to discredit him to family members and mutual friends, creating an ugly backdrop to what should be a fresh start for Meri, who after years of heartbreak and emotional neglect under Kody's thumb has finally begun to live out her own vision of independence. And it's in this environment that Jen, her longtime best friend and trusted confidant, has stepped up in the fiercest way possible, publicly and privately obliterating Kody's credibility, while also pulling no punches when it comes to calling out Robyn for enabling his behavior, with fans applauding Jen for saying what so many have thought for years: that Kody's obsession with controlling narratives and tearing others down is the very reason his once sprawling plural marriage collapsed, and Jen's cutting remarks have not only exposed the pettiness of Kody's crusade against Meri's new relationship, but also framed Robyn as complicit, someone who pretends to be above the fray, but secretly thrives on the chaos that keeps the spotlight firmly on her and Kody. And as these attacks intensify, the dynamics become clearer. Meri is no longer the subdued and sidelined wife desperate for scraps of Kody's attention, but a woman reclaiming her dignity, choosing joy, and refusing to let her ex dictate how her story unfolds, while her new husband represents everything Kody is not: supportive, present, respectful, and the contrast cuts deeply, fueling Kody's bitterness and driving him to even more aggressive outbursts, which only makes Jen's interventions more impactful, because each time Kody tries to throw mud, Jen fires back with sharp truths and biting humor that dismantle his arguments and highlight his hypocrisy, whether by reminding him that Meri stood by him through scandals and failures only to be discarded, or by pointing out that Robyn's constant tears don't erase the pain she inflicted on the other wives. And with every obliteration, Jen not only defends her best friend but also serves as the voice of the fans who have long seen through Kody's theatrics, turning her into an unlikely heroine in this ongoing saga. And the ripple effects are monumental, because Kody's reputation continues to unravel. Robyn's attempts at sympathy fall flat, and Meri, bolstered by love and friendship, rises stronger than ever, proving that no amount of attacks can undo the power of moving forward with people who truly value you. And if the past decade of Sister Wives has been defined by Kody's dominance and control, the next chapter is being defined by the women and allies who refuse to let his negativity overshadow their pursuit of happiness, with Jen at the front lines, Meri's husband by her side, and Kody's increasingly desperate attempts serving only as the backdrop to a story of resilience, empowerment, and karmic justice that fans cannot stop talking about, as the once untouchable patriarch finds himself outmaneuvered by friendship, love, and a brutal honesty that cuts far deeper than any of his attacks ever could. The storyline doesn't stop with Kody simply making offhand remarks about Meri's new husband. Insiders claim that his obsession has become a near-daily topic in his conversations, where he reportedly belittles Meri's choices, scoffs at the idea of her deserving happiness, and even goes so far as to imply that her new husband is a nobody riding her fame, a jab that feels both cruel and revealing. because it underscores Kody's inability to process Meri's newfound independence without trying to drag her back down into the cycle of emotional manipulation he thrived on for decades. But the difference now is that Meri is no longer alone on the battlefield, and with her best friend Jen acting as her shield and amplifier, every one of Kody's attempts to undermine is met with a powerful clapback that doesn't just sting him personally, but also shatters the narrative he tries so hard to build for viewers. Because Jen is not under contract, she doesn't have to follow TLC's careful editing guidelines, and she speaks raw truth in interviews on social media and in everyday conversations that spread like wildfire among the fanbase, making her voice both dangerous and effective against a man who has controlled the family's storyline for years. And it's this uncensored energy that makes her obliterations feel so cathartic. She's called him out for gaslighting, reminded everyone of his history of favoritism, and even accused him of weaponizing religion to justify his cruel treatment of the other wives. And when it comes to Robyn, Jen doesn't mince words either, tearing down the facade of the innocent victim that Robyn has perfected since joining the family, instead painting her as an active participant in the destruction of relationships and the hoarding of Kody's affection and resources, which, according to Jen, leaves her partially responsible for the bitterness that now drives Kody to lash out at Meri's new happiness. What fans find particularly fascinating is how Meri herself seems both protective of her new husband and also determined not to let Kody drag her back into the mud, as she often sidesteps direct confrontation but instead leans into positivity, posting uplifting quotes, wholesome photos, and glimpses of her fresh lifestyle. Yet behind that peaceful exterior lies a subtle but powerful defiance, the kind that says, "I don't need to fight you anymore, because my life speaks for itself." And this, ironically, infuriates Kody even more, because for a man used to being the center of attention and the puppeteer of emotional drama, there's nothing more destabilizing than being ignored. And while Meri radiates happiness in her marriage, Kody is left raging at shadows, supported only by Robyn, whose tears and defensiveness grow less convincing with each passing episode, and fans notice it too, flooding online forums with praise for Meri's glow-up and brutal memes mocking Kody's tantrums, calling him the ex who can't move on and the king of hypocrisy, while hailing Jen as the friend every woman deserves in her corner, with some even suggesting TLC should give Jen her own confessional spots or a spin-off role to counterbalance Kody's self-serving narratives. The tension escalates further when we look at how the kids perceive the situation, because many of them, particularly those closer to Meri, reportedly admire her resilience and are unimpressed by Kody's digs at her new husband, and though not all have gone public, the whispers about private conversations suggest that Kody is alienating himself more and more by obsessively tearing down someone who hasn't wronged him personally, and in fact, this fixation exposes his own insecurities, because Meri's husband represents stability, loyalty, and most importantly, a willingness to stand by her without conditions, things Kody withheld for years, and in doing so, the very existence of this new man becomes a mirror that reflects everything Kody failed to be, which makes his attacks feel less like genuine concerns and more like a desperate attempt to reassert dominance in a storyline he no longer controls. From a production standpoint, TLC faces a complex challenge. On one hand, Kody's fiery temper and Jen's viral obliterations make for television gold, the kind of raw, messy drama that pulls ratings, but on the other, the narrative is slipping further away from Kody and Robyn's carefully maintained image as the real marriage that survived. Because viewers are now more invested in Meri's healing journey and the no-nonsense loyalty of Jen than in watching Kody and Robyn defend their crumbling kingdom, and the longer the attacks continue, the more sympathetic Meri becomes in the public eye, rewriting her legacy from the wife who lingered too long to the wife who finally won by walking away and finding real love, a shift so significant that it could reshape the entire Sister Wives franchise if TLC leans into it, and yet, Kody either doesn't see it or refuses to acknowledge it, doubling down with sharper insults, angrier tones, and bizarre justifications that leave fans cringing. Instead of siding with him, making him look less like a patriarch and more like a jealous ex desperate to stay relevant in a story that has outgrown him. But what makes Jen's role in all of this so electrifying is her timing and precision. She doesn't just fire back randomly. She chooses moments that maximize impact, whether it's after a particularly nasty rumor spread by Kody or in response to Robyn's crocodile tears, and her takedowns, often laced with humor and undeniable truth, don't just defend Meri. They strip away the layers of manipulation that Kody has built up for years, forcing fans to reckon with the possibility that the man who once presented himself as a loving patriarch is, in fact, a deeply insecure individual unraveling in real time. And each time Jen speaks, her words resonate far beyond the fanbase, trickling into media coverage, podcasts, and commentary shows that frame her as the unexpected star of this new chapter. Someone who says what the rest of the Browns might think, but can't openly admit due to family ties and contractual obligations, which only amplifies her credibility and makes Kody's counterattacks look increasingly hollow. Meanwhile, Meri continues to blossom. Her appearances with her husband radiate comfort and authenticity, the kind that doesn't need to be staged for cameras, and her social media posts highlight adventures, laughter, and subtle nods to a life filled with peace rather than turmoil, which stands in stark contrast to the storm Kody keeps trying to stir, and fans notice the juxtaposition, commenting that Meri finally looks happy, and her new husband is the kind of partner she always deserved. Further fueling the narrative that Kody's time as the center of her world has not only ended, but has been replaced by someone better, a reality that Kody can't handle, which is why his attacks grow sharper with each passing week, because in his mind, her happiness without him is a form of betrayal, even though he long ago abandoned her emotionally, and this contradiction, pointed out by Jen in her obliterations, exposes the core of Kody's hypocrisy. He doesn't want her, but he doesn't want anyone else to have her either. Robyn, of course, plays her usual role in this saga, but fans are catching on faster than ever. Her tears, her whispered support for Kody, and her attempts to play peacemaker all feel manufactured, as though she's clinging to the last remnants of sympathy, but Jen's dismantling of her narrative has been brutal, calling her out as the architect of division, the one who benefited most from Kody's favoritism, and the woman who now cries victim only when the consequences of those choices begin to backfire. And this blunt assessment resonates deeply with viewers, many of whom have grown tired of Robyn's act and now openly celebrate whenever Jen drags her, making her less a sympathetic figure and more the co-villain in Kody's unraveling saga. And as the walls close in, the couple that once seemed untouchable now appear cornered, fighting battles on multiple fronts, against Meri's happiness, against fan backlash, and against the raw truth spilling from Jen's fearless commentary. Ultimately, what we're witnessing is not just a feud, but a symbolic shift, the downfall of Kody's unchecked authority, the collapse of Robyn's carefully curated image, and the rise of Meri's new era, backed by the kind of friendship and love that makes attacks bounce off rather than sink in. And while Kody may believe that tearing down Meri's new husband will somehow diminish her glow, the opposite is happening. The more he attacks, the brighter she shines, the stronger Jen claps back, and the more fans rally around her story of resilience, leaving Kody and Robyn exposed as bitter, small, and desperately clinging to relevance, while Meri strides confidently into the next chapter of her life, hand in hand with someone who truly values her, and cheered on by a best friend who refuses to let the bullies of the past dictate the joy of the future. As the battle lines grow sharper, what makes this chapter of Sister Wives history so remarkable is that Meri doesn't even have to swing a sword. Kody is essentially destroying his own credibility, while Jen sharpens the blades of truth on his behalf, and Meri's new husband simply exists as the calm, steady counterweight to the storm, quietly supporting her while the chaos rages around them, which ironically makes Kody's fury look even more unhinged, because the more he tries to paint this man as unworthy, the more fans see the exact opposite, a patient, loving partner who doesn't need cameras or control to prove his worth. And in that way, Kody's endless attacks backfire, turning into free publicity for Meri's new life, while Jen's savage commentary cements her as the loudspeaker of reality, the one who calls out Robyn's manipulations and holds Kody accountable in ways no one else dares to. So the stage is set for one of the most dramatic shifts yet in the show's legacy, with Meri and Jen leading the charge into a future filled with laughter, loyalty, and love, while Kody and Robyn are left to stew in the ruins of the empire they built on favoritism, control, and tears.